Hi, this is Mrs. Rodolfi, and I'm going to go through the Quiz 5 Interim 2 study guide. All right, section 1 is no calculator. So this is very similar types of questions that you will see. And on the first session, it is also no calculator. So please do not use your calculator on this so you can practice doing the math by hand. Directions: use your notes and prior knowledge to answer the following review questions. Show all work or explain your reasoning. Again, do not use a calculator. So if you want to put it under your desk right now, which is what we will do during the interim, that may be a good option just so it's not, right in front of you and tempting. I'm going to go through some of these problems. Some I have multiple types of the same concept, so I'm just going to go through one or two examples, and then if there are any in this video that I do not go over, I also have posted the key, so go ahead and use the key to double check it. But again, do try them on your own first, and then use this video to check your answers or to help you get stuck. But you would definitely want to see what you can do on your own beforehand. All right, so number one, which expressions are equivalent to x squared minus 25 times x plus 5? So on this one, it says select 3 equivalent expressions. So it's telling us that we have 3 answers to this. Now, this is in factored form. It's a product of a product, 2 binomial factors. So I'm looking at the x squared minus 25, and I can see that that one I could also factor out, because if it has an x squared, I can make that into 2 binomial factors as well. So remember, if it's a difference of a perfect square, 25, that's a perfect square. And I have no middle term here. There's no bx term. So that means it got canceled out. So if we talked about this concept in one of our notes packets, but for this one, I right away know that it would be x minus 5 times x plus 5, because my middle term is going to cancel out. If I have negative 5 times x, negative 5x, and then 5 times x is 5x, negative 5x plus 5x is going to cancel each other out. And then I still have that last term here, x plus 5. So I know right away that D is equivalent. Also, I know that x squared, that's equivalent to, if I just put parentheses around the x and square it, and then minus 25, if I just isolate that 25, that's 5 squared. So I know that this first expression is also equivalent. I have 2 x plus 5 binomial factors, so I know it can't be x minus 5 cubed. It can't be x plus 5 cubed, so we can cancel those out. Then for E, x plus 5 squared times x minus 5. Yes, because these two terms, remember, if it's multiplied by itself, that's also equivalent to x plus 5 squared. So E would be correct. F, x minus 5 squared, no, because I only have 1 x minus 5. And then x cubed minus 125, that would not be equivalent either, because if we actually multiplied these together, we would still have a middle term in that sense, and there's no middle term here, so that could not work. Number 2, Kyra is traveling to Europe, and she is curious how the weather in the United States compares. She knows the formula for Fahrenheit is F equals 9/5 C plus 32. Help Tyra solve for C, Celsius temperature. So this is one of those literal equations where we have to rearrange it to get C equals. So I'm going to rewrite it. Again, reminder, pause the video and try these on your own first, and then use the video to check it or when you get stuck. So if you haven't done that, pause right now and try it on your own. All right, so when we're dealing with solving literal equations, it's just like if you were solving a regular equation. We want to look at the side with the variable we want to isolate. So we want to isolate the C, And so I'm going to look at this side of the equal sign that has the C, and I want to get rid of my constants first, which is my number by itself, and that's the plus 32. So I'm going to subtract 32 from both sides. And then I can't combine f minus 32, so I would just keep them separate. F minus 32 equals 9/5 C. And then 9/5 times C, to get rid of a fraction, we have to multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by 5/9. And then those cancel out. C equals 5/9 times F minus 32. And that's our answer. All right. Pause the video and try 3 and 4 on your own. I will go over number 3 in this video, and then you can use the key for 4. So for 3, the area A of a trapezoid is given by the formula A equals 1/2 h times C plus D, where h is the height and C and D are the lengths of the bases. Rearrange the formula so that the height h of the trapezoid can be determined given the area and lengths of the bases. Enter your answer in the box. All right, so now we need to solve for h equals. A equals 1/2 h times C plus D. So for this one, I want to get rid of my fraction first. So I can multiply the entire equation by the reciprocal 2, or 2 over 1, same thing. Both sides, so 2a. This 2 cancels out the 1/2, so then I'm left with h times C plus D. And then if it's being multiplied, I can divide the entire expression C plus D to both sides. So h equals 2a over C plus D. And that would be our final answer. And then you can use the key to check your answer for number 4. 5, the graph of an equation is shown. How many solutions of the equation are represented on the graph? Remember that when we are looking at graphs, this is showing me infinite solutions. There are infinite order pairs on this line, and it just is going to keep going forever. So a graph will always show all of the solutions. Number 6, multiply x minus 3 times 6x minus 2. So for this multiplying polynomials, you can either use the box method or the distributive property. So I'm going to review the box method here. So I would put it on the outside of the box, x minus 3 times 6x minus, it doesn't matter which side you put them on, just make sure if they're inside parentheses, they go on the same side, but it doesn't matter, you could have swapped it. All right, then it's like an area model, length times width. So x times 6x would be 6x squared. Negative 3 times 6x is negative 18x. X times negative 2 is negative 2x. And negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 6. Then remember, for these, we have to combine our like terms, which are these diagonal boxes with x. So negative 18x plus negative 2x is negative 20x. So this would go in the middle. And then my 6x squared, so 6, notice how it already has x squared here, and x, so we're just putting the numbers in, and then 6. So again, this middle term, negative 20, came from negative 20x, came from negative 18, x plus negative 2x. All right, try number 7 on your own, and then you can use the key to check your answer. All right, on number 8, let's use cubes to mark the text. After opening an ancient bottle that you find on the beach, a genie appears. In payment for his freedom, he gives you 2 magical gold coins. The magic coins will turn into 6 gold coins on the first day. The 6 coins will turn into 18 coins total at the end of the 2 days. By the end of the 3rd day, there will be 54 gold coins total. The genie explains that the magic coins will continue this pattern of tripling each day for one moon cycle, 28 days. The expression 2 times 3 to the x models the situation where x represents the number of days after the genie initially gave you 2 magical coins. So x represents number of days after genie initially gave you the 2 coins. That's important. What do the different parts of the expression represent? Complete each sentence by choosing the correct phrase to write on each line. So you're given these phrases in the box, and we have to choose which ones to complete the lines. So 2 represents. So we're going back to the equation given. 2 times 3 to the x. So reading the options, the factor by which the number of coins increases each day. Well, going back to that, it's tripling. So that's not the 2 because tripling is times 3. The number of additional coins you have each day, well, it went from 2 to 6 to 18, so it's not adding by 2 each day. The initial number of coins received by the genie, that is true because there were 2 magical coins, and if you are familiar with exponential functions, they are y equals a times b to the x. So when we're multiplying by the same amount each time, that's exponential, and a represents the initial value, which is 2. So that would be the correct statement. 2 represents the initial number of coins received by the genie. I'll just let you write the rest. And then 3 represents, 3 would be our value for b in the exponential function, and that shows that it's tripling each day, it's multiplying each day. And so that would be the factor that we're multiplying by. So 3 represents the factor by which the number of coins increases each day. And again, you can write the rest. So be familiar with the parts of an exponential function. All right, number 9, part A. Which expression is equivalent to 5 times x squared plus 9 times x squared minus 2 times x squared? All right, another one where we're trying to find equivalent expressions. So one thing I notice is these all have x squared. So remember how we can factor out the greatest common factor, the GCF? So I'm going to factor those out, and I can divide it by x squared. Remember, if I divide it by x squared, that goes on the outside of the parentheses. Then I'm left with 5 plus 9 minus 2, which is our option for D. Since they're being added, it can't be A because that's showing 5 times 9 times 2. We can't just add them together, 5 plus 9 minus 2, and then plus x squared. It would be times x squared, so we could combine those like terms, but it wouldn't be plus. And then 5x squared plus 9x squared minus 2x squared. That is also not going to be equivalent because it's putting those inside the parentheses. So D would be our equivalent expression. All right, part B, rewrite the expression 5x squared minus 40x plus 35 as 3 factors where one factor is an integer value. Again, let's think of the GCF. One factor has to be an integer value. Integer, remember, is a positive or negative whole number. So if we're factoring out an integer, we need to think of what the GCF is. So I'm going to rewrite it down here. 5x squared minus 40x plus 35. All right, so right away I can see that 5 would be the greatest common factor. These numbers are all divisible by 5. So I would divide by 5. Remember, that goes on the outside of the parentheses. Then I would divide them all. 5x squared divided by 5 is x squared. Negative 40x divided by 5 is negative 8x. And 35 divided by 5 is 7. All right. Then I need 2 binomial factors because it says as 3 factors. So I know I can factor this x squared term. So remember, we need factors of c, which is 7, that are a sum of our middle term, which is -8. All right, so right away, I know 7 and 1 are, but if I add those together, that's 8. I need -8, so I know that if I have -7 times -1, that equals 7, and -7 plus -1 equals -8. So those would be my factors. I still need to keep the 5 on the outside of the parentheses, and then I would do x minus 7 times x minus 1. That is my answer. So 5 would be our integer factor, and then our 2 binomial factors, x minus 7 times x minus 1. All right, number 10. Consider the functions represented below. Using the word number bank below, write the word and numbers on the lines to correctly complete the sentence about the minimum or maximum value of the function. All right, so this is where I briefly talked about it in class. This is vertex form of a function. And you can get all this information straight from this equation, no calculator needed. So in vertex form, the first number in front of the parentheses, that's our a value, and that's going to tell you if it has a maximum or minimum. So remember, if it's positive, so when a is greater than 0, it's going to be a parabola opening up. So that would have a minimum value. So this would plug in, this function has a minimum because that 3 in front is greater than 0. If your a value is less than 0, that means it's going to be the parabola opening down, and so that would have a maximum. So this -2 tells me that this function has a maximum. So that's something to look out for. Then the number inside the parentheses is our x value, x plus 2, but remember, it's when it's inside the parentheses, it's the opposite sign. So then I know that means my x value is going to be -2. Here we can cross off what we've used. And then the -8 is your y value of your vertex, which is our minimum. So then I would just keep that as -8. So our minimum value is at -2, -8. So remember, +2, it becomes opposite sign -2, and then the -8 stays -8. All right, and then in B, x minus 8, so again, it would become +8 for our x value, and then the +3 stays 3. So those would be our answers for that. Number 11, the equation y sub 1 equals x squared minus 4 represents function 1. The graph of function 1 is shown. Function 2 is represented by the equation y sub 2 equals x plus 2. Which values are solutions to y sub 1 equals y sub 2? Fill in the boxes with the correct solutions. So again, solutions to two functions is where the lines intersect. So what we could do is draw the other graph on this graph. You will be provided with graph paper during the interim, so you can use that. So let's try that. So if it's x plus 2, I am going to first graph the y-intercept, which is at 0, 2. So remember, the constant is our y-intercept, so I'd put a point at 2. And then x, the coefficient of x is my slope. So remember, that invisible number in front of x is 1. And I make it into a fraction, rise over run. So I would go up 1, right 1, up 1, right 1. And then if I go the opposite direction, down 1, left 1. And right away, I could see the 2 points where they would intersect with the parabola, right here and right here. And all I need are those x values. So this has an x value of -2, and then this one has an x value of 3. So those would be our two solutions. All right, this is the end of section 1 with no calculator. So now you can go ahead and grab a calculator for the next section. And I'm going to do a different video for the next section, so please tune into that if you would like to review this section. Thanks for watching. Bye.